of people jump in and they think, if I don't know how to do the renegade, I can't be on TikTok. Or if I don't have 10,000 followers on Instagram, then what's the point of even starting or something like that? And Get Scrappy is all about how you don't have to be these giant brands and you don't have to be these giant personalities to be able to find success in your marketing, and how you can take small things from what other giant marketers do, or giant budgets or large brokerages, or however you want to look at it, and do it in a way that makes sense for you and get a little scrappy with it. And that's kind of what you need to do as an agent these days. You've got to make the noise. The average attention span for an adult in the United States right now is 6 seconds. The attention spans are shorter than ever, and we've got more messages coming up at us. And so it's very hard. And so the more that you can get scrappy, I think that's super helpful. And some people will rack their brain and continually run into dead ends trying to make it themselves. And not everybody can figure it out. Not everybody can end up being the best storyteller. So if it's not you, you have to figure out how to add that talent.
You are listening to the number one real estate podcast in the world. We talk with the real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, and stories, help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Stream, joined with Vikram Deal of the Real Estate Sales Academy. I'm traveling, so I don't have my fancy mic in front of me, and it feels weird that I have this headset on, but I bought it for a reason, because I knew that over the next 4 weeks I was going to be traveling. Well, next 5 weeks, technically, headed to Spain next week. But Mr. Vikram Deal, what's happening, man? You're wearing the shirt that we got. I'm so happy you're wearing the Sheridan Street shirt. You're representing, and I appreciate that. And I know you
repping the
appreciate
brand,
that
baby.
as well. Repping the brand.
What's
What's good in your world? What's good in your world, my friend?
So yesterday, this would be a fun story. People are either going to love it or they're going to tune out. Yesterday it was 888, right? So it's like this big spiritual thing. But 8s are the number of prosperity. So one of my friends here in Medellin was like, "Hey, you should come to this event." And I was like, "Cool." So I go to the event, and there's a table there, the vendor that has got magic mushrooms, right? And I like to microdose. It makes me feel good. It helps my brain expand. Just like a lot of really good benefits have come from it in the past, around mood and focus. So the guy told me it's really powerful, and I'm like, cool. It's 0.2 of a dose of 1/30th of a normal dose. I'm like, well, okay, cool. This will be awesome. I'll expand my brain. Today's a quiet day. I'll be able to focus and get a bunch of work done and blah, 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 blah. Bro, in the middle of our last podcast, all of a sudden I was just like, holy shit, this stuff is strong. I'm like, whatever they grow in Medellin or whatever this dude's putting in this stuff, I was just like, whoa, gone. And now I'm ate some food. I'm chilling again. But
now you're good.
Yeah, because I've been dealing with some things personally, right? I think everybody in this space has, and just some financial things, some personal things, some breakup. And, all the tools that are available out there to help you feel better. So when you feel better, you do better. I like to experience, I don't want to take a pharmaceutical, which has so many side effects. I would much rather research and find something that's more on the natural side that has minimal side effects. Well, actually, there's really no side effects at all. There's no addiction. There's no mood swings, anything like that. But dude, I was halfway through that last podcast, I was like, "Whoa, I'm on a whole nother level right now," which was a good experience. Yeah. What's good with you, bro?
I'm sober as a cat, bro. I guess technically I got, on my second coffee. So
you're on your sixth shot of caffeine.
Yeah. I can't say much, but things are good, man. I'm living off the high from last week of the event. People coming up to us afterwards saying, "Hey, you could have charged 5x the money for this event," and just in regards to the practical knowledge that everyone shared from the panel you and I did with Sharon, to your presentation, to my presentation, to our top agent panel, and what our top agents are doing and saying in order to actually get more listings and more buyers in today's market. So it's really cool to kind of see transformation, that saying of live events change lives. I've seen that firsthand, and I've been at a ton of events, but this is the first event that I have actually hosted alongside of you. Like I don't know if you've hosted events in the past, but this is like the first like real estate event I've ever hosted. And to have agents come and say, hey, like this was an upgrade event. This was an event that I was able to come to, and whether, you know, like we tackled so much, mailer, tackled expired, tackled open houses. It wasn't just a digital marketing event. Like I'm a digital marketing guy, but I love the fact that we were able to, NAR settlement. I love the fact that we were able to touch every facet of the business. And, you know, I think people left with like tangible things that they can do in order to make a difference in their local market. So living off the high of that, headed to Spain next week. So that's going to be a ton of fun. But, you know, I think this is a good segue. This is a good segue. Your story about your mushroom trip that you had earlier today.
Whoa,
my
story not a
about,
trip.
Like,
it was just an over euphoric experience that I wasn't expecting.
An over joyous and over. Okay. You weren't expecting it. So we'll give that to you. I think it's a good opportunity for us to intro our guest, Wayne Stanley, and just preface like kind of like what we're going to chat about today, about like the power of storytelling, the power of branding, the power of like actually sharing your story. And like Vic and I, when we were at the event, you told your story about, you know, being at one point $700,000 in debt to your story now of like, you know, building a massive real estate business, shutting the real estate business down, going $700,000 in debt, going into multiple businesses. My story of like, you know, I told my story at the event of like, you know, in 2019, 2020, you know, I went to a conference and like literally business changed overnight, where it's like I had one employee and within a year, we grew to 22, 23. Everything is storytelling. So that's kind of like set the context for what we're going to chat about today. But Wayne, why don't you give us kind of like a 60-second Cliff Notes version on like kind of who you are, what you do, and kind of give our listeners kind of like a little bit of a just quick backstory of kind of like who you are. So kind of set context for what we're going to chat about today.
Of course. Thanks for letting me be here today. It's always great to talk about this. I always nerd out on this topic. I own Bo Digital, and we're a marketing firm that helps small businesses, especially those in real estate, tell their story more efficiently. I felt like when I was starting the company in 2017, that marketing didn't need to be as difficult as it is for a lot of people, as scary as it is for a lot of people, and as costly as it is for a lot of people. There were so many that would have horror stories of the amounts of money that they've spent over the years on marketing to have zero result. And just with the tools that we have today, that's not how it has to be. And I figured there was probably a way that I could also make a good living and create a good living for my team along the way in that too. So the culture side of what we do internally is important, but we wouldn't have any of that if we weren't able to tell stories the way that we do. And that's really what I think that we do best.
When you think about like your personal brand, right? And you think about sharing something personally, that's a really scary thing for a lot of people, especially in the real estate space, which is, as you know, Wayne, like super ego driven, super like, I have to be perfectionist. I have to be this certain persona that people think. But like when you're open and vulnerable, right? Like Cody shared some things. I shared some things with our live event. I've shared a lot of stuff in my social to the point where my parents are like, do you need to tell everybody about your horror stories of life? Like, can't you just focus in on more of the positive things that you've done? And I'm like, well, that makes me a full person. But like when you share more vulnerably, does that hurt your brand? Does that help your brand? Does that help you attract the right tribe? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, we're on this cusp of what I keep calling, like, I think an age of realism again, where like everything that happened with social and your identity online for so long was super polished. You know, we originally started this when Instagram came out. I think that's when it became a thing where like everybody was sharing pictures of their food, and it elevated very quickly. Where like, we don't want to see the cheap meals that you're having and the simple pizza dinner that you're doing. We want to see the extravagant stuff. We want to see
show me El Chillo, the 5-star experience.
Exactly. Your gold leafed ice cream, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And it just went crazy from there. And that's why we have influencer life and all of that. But you're starting to see that break down a little bit, I think. And you're seeing some that are saying like, there are some really popular accounts that are coming of age right now that are, life's not easy. Life's not simple. Life's not pretty. And I think that that's more relatable to people, especially in this market, especially in this real estate market right now. I think that that's even more relatable for folks and likely will get you people that are going to, end up being with you long term for whatever their future holds and whatever deals you may be able to do with them. They don't want that. Even if you're talking about investor business or commercial business, I think that's the case. I think you're able to build deeper relationships the more real and honest that you can be.
Yeah, like we have a fundamental belief at Sheridan Street, like our agency and our sales training, organization, that all conversion happens in great conversation. But like I think one of the mistakes that people make is they think that, like, in order to open up the conversation, in order to have somebody even want to have a conversation with you, there's that level, like you say, of like realism that people ultimately want to feel connected. They want to feel safe, they want to feel seen, and they want to feel heard. And I think it's really important to kind of like understand that the landscape that we're living in, like you said, is a lot different from, like the Instagram in 2016 looks a lot different than the Instagram that it is today, or especially with the TikTokification of the content. What are you thinking right now? Or what are some like practices or tips that like you are teaching your clients, or you're teaching the agents that you speak with, that allow them to kind of more storytell and post less just listed, just sold? Like how do they make that transitionary, crossing the chasm or crossing the bridge from like, I'm just going to post about houses to I'm going to tell my story and it's going to resonate with the end consumer? How do you make that? How do you cross that bridge?
It's not easy to cross that bridge, and some cross it, sort of going a little too fast. I think sometimes, we talk about this, and then some will say, "Look, I was really honest," and they'll send a picture, because there are some agents in this market that have had to get part-time jobs, that have had to get full-time jobs, and are living below the means that they have been for the last decade or so, and all of that. And so they've been super honest in that way. And I'm like, well, maybe you don't have to share everything. We still don't have to share everything that's happening, because you don't want to demean your experience, your knowledge, what you bring to the table. But there is a way to show all the work. I think one of the things that, we can go as far into the NAR settlement stuff as you want to, but I think in general, regardless of that situation, there has been a need for a long time for agents to better explain their benefit to their customer, whether that's buyer, seller, it doesn't really matter, because there's so much that goes into it. And if you were to take the agent out of the equation, there's so much that would be up in the air for these folks that have no idea what they would do, who would answer these questions, or who would know where to turn to next. And I think that's a big deal, to be able to weave that into your story. Not only do I do this for you in the transaction, but here's how I learned it. Here's the background of this happened to me in a deal once, and I never thought it was important, but now I remind every single buyer that that's a big deal. Or I saw a seller make this mistake, and now I'm able to prevent that from ever happening to one of my sellers again. And things like that, where like using your past and your history and everything that makes you, how then you use that to benefit your customers, not in a salesy way, not in a sleazy way, but in a very like, here I am, I'm putting it out there. And that's whether you're in, first-time home buyer, low-income housing neighborhoods and economies, or all the way up into, the luxury real estate side of things. Being able to tell that story still matters to people.
Yeah, man. Like, I love that. I call it the Grey's Anatomy effect, right? So when you go back to like, I'm old, so when I go back to like, why did I love watching Grey's Anatomy? It's because I knew that in every episode there was going to be some goriness, there was going to be drama, there was going to be a gunshot, right? It was going to be some wild ass thing. And that kept me hooked. But then I also knew that like one of the doctors was going to do some crazy heroic thing to save the lives and save the people. And it was like the storytelling was so captivating that I was like locked in. And I'm embarrassed to say, but I think I've watched every episode and every season of Grey's Anatomy. But like realtors, what we do is it's like, cool, I got my just sold card and I have the client next to me and I'm like, look at how happy they are. And I'm like, y'all don't realize like the transaction is what makes you this. If you don't share the transaction details, right? Like you were saying, you're not showing people the complexity. And I think a lot of people, right? And Cody and I have had this conversation. I don't think the agent fully understands the process, because the agent doesn't understand the process. They don't know how to explain it in a prior presentation, but leave alone explain it on social media where people are actually going to see him. And because of that lack of that intimate knowledge of the process, they just get shy in front of the camera, and then they think that they need to make like some stupid video. But instead, if they were actually like the doctor, like I could never imagine my dad's a doctor. I could never imagine, Cody, could you imagine my dad getting on TikTok and doing some stupid ass shit?
I would love to see, a little TikTok dance, like, hit the renegade.
Yeah. Like my dad's a great dancer, but like, he's not going to post that stuff online because he has such an intimate knowledge of health and wellness that he could just go and talk for hours and hours, and people are going to be like, okay, I need what he's saying. I'm going to tune in. But agents are like, I don't know, man. Like, how do we get agents? I guess to me, the reason why they don't share their stuff is because they don't have something to share. What are your thoughts around that? Different take.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think a lot of them think they don't have anything to say or to share, and that's not the case. And I think if you're a managing broker or an owner or anything like that on this, my message to you is you've got to tell your folks that the posts that you were talking about of just listed, just sold, that kind of stuff, that's the bare minimum. That's literally the expectation, right? Like if you're a real estate agent, we expect you to either list homes or sell. Like that is the bare minimum. So if that's all you're posting, you are making average grades in that. Even if you're
like, I wouldn't even call those average anymore. I would say like, unless you're able to storytell somehow with what you're saying, like Cody talks a lot about this. Like Cody yells at me all the time. He's like, bro, your posts suck. And I'm like, I'm trying to make them better, but I don't know what to do. He's like, bro, like you got to storytell. He's like, when you're talking, you write differently, right? He's like, but you got to take people through like an experience. And what agents don't do, and I might be talking too much, but they post just listed, just sold, but they don't share anything other than the fact that they got a paycheck. Like you could go and easily tell how much a realtor makes a year because you just go through their social media for the last 12 months. No post, no post, no post. 3 months go by, just sold. No post, no post, just listed. No sold, just sold. No, like 3 months. And you're like, all right, this person's done 5. You type their name into Zillow. You're like, okay, they've done 7. Oh God, they missed 2 posts. What happened? They got busy, right? And it's exactly. Not funny. It's not funny, but it's the reality that they only post when they think they should with the sale.
I would agree entirely. And they have so much more to say before each one of those transactions that made it unique. And the ones that, if they weren't, there are some where you get lucky and there's nothing unique about it. Nothing wild happened, nothing crazy happened, and that's fine. You don't necessarily need to talk about it. That's just one that you have, like that's part of you making your living, but you've done so many others that you can tell stories about what happened that got you to that closing, what happened that got you to escrow, whatever it may be, wherever you're at. And what did you learn from it? What did they bring to the table? What did you learn from the people involved in the transaction, not just your role, but everybody else in there that you can share? Because that's another one that's huge for a lot of people. And then I also think, another piece that can kind of show the community knowledge and all of that localized expertise that is so important for a lot of these agents is also what piece of that did you learn and grow in this particular one? Who did you, what contact did you make, or who did you have to meet at the county courthouse, or who knows what, to be able to make this one happen, and tell those kind of stories that shows, again, all of the cliche, like above and beyond and all of that maybe you had to do in this transaction, but it's something that's way more interesting than just, I sold this house.
So I hypothetically speaking, I'm an agent listening to this podcast. I'm an agent out there saying, okay, I get it, Wayne. I got to tell stories. I get it, Cody. I get it, Vic. I got to tell stories. Like practically, how do you start? Like, do you guys do you have a framework that you use with people? Like we have a couple frameworks we use in regards to storytelling, but I find it such a, like when you get it, it clicks and you start doing it. But like, there's that moment, like for example, for Vic and I, we went to grow his video live probably like 3 years ago now. And that was like, I think the turning point for Vic and I were like, okay, this content thing's not going away. But I was creating content. I had a video production company in my past life. We were creating content for brands, for businesses, like prior to us having the sales training organization. So I I understood the storytelling element on a deep level, but it's like, it's almost like something has to go off in the brain that gets them to understand the power of this. And I've had friends that, or I have a friend, Chase, who's in the insurance space, and he's like, he was watching what we were doing, and he's like, man, and now he's absolutely crushing it in the insurance space, because he started storytelling. Like, how do they start? And like, what are, like, can you give us maybe like a some frameworks that you use to help people think better about how to effectively storytell?
Yeah, I think that the two things we get people to start with where they can't, if that's just not the way their brain works, or they don't feel like that's, them or their brand or whatever, we have them talk about victories and failures. And those are the two number ones. And you can, maybe it's not failure for some, it can be considered backstory or other things. A lot of people use that in different ways, but, and for some of them, it's maybe not that, but it's also hurdles, headaches. That's a big one for us, where I'll say, what are the most annoying questions that you get? And then figure out how to tell stories around that. Because if you're getting those questions, often we're not answering them well enough. We're not doing the marketing, the education, whatever that may be. So you can use that to build a story around. For some of them that really don't get it, have a really tough time thinking about, or truly they believe that they don't have a story to tell, we go back to, we get a lot of copywriting books that you might take in like college or high school, and have them think through prompts that are in those books. And how would you describe your business if you were a pirate? How would you describe what you do in the real estate transaction in a fortune cookie? And it forces you to train your brain differently, because we don't normally think about that. They wouldn't normally talk about how they are, swashbuckling other real estate agents that are trying to undercut this deal. They don't talk about how the buyers are going to have to walk the plank if they fall into a wire fraud problem, and all of these kind of like terms and phrases that we would never use, but like that could really resonate with people or break through the noise for folks. So that's one. And the fortune cookie one I love, because it forces you to be super succinct and super clever in what, if somebody opened a fortune cookie about why they should use you as a real estate agent, what would it say? And then they're immediately like, because you don't have two and three and four lines.
What should it say? I know what most would say. It's because we give you the best customer experience ever, and we're the number one agent in all of Nantucket, but we've only sold 3 houses. But that's what we were told at some conference 5 years ago, or that's what we heard another agent say. I mean, it's the truth, but realtors don't leave the real estate space, so they are very, like, they follow other realtors. They're in their stupid real estate groups. They ask other realtors for experience, but they don't ask other people outside of their industry. So they're very incestual with their marketing and with their messaging. What would be something that you could put on a fortune cookie?
It should be their most unexpected number one strength. And it can't be something that's all encompassing like customer service. And I'll get into that here in a second, but it should be their most unexpected number one strength. And so I'll give you an example. For me, I say that we're great storytellers. So a lot of people would think that our fortune cookie would say we're great storytellers. We tell the best stories, on the planet or something like that. We're the Disney of storytelling for real estate agents, who knows what. But that's not really the case. One of the things that I'm best at within storytelling is actually speech writing for people. And so my fortune cookie would say, I'm the best listener you've ever met. Because if I wasn't the best listener, I wouldn't be able to write a speech on your behalf. I wouldn't be able to tap into who you are, the stories that you're really telling me, the experiences you've had, the things you feel, and all of that. And that goes into storytelling and the rest of what we do too. We have to be able to listen. If we don't listen well, we can never articulate that externally. And so I think that would be my personal one. But I think for a lot of agents that lean on customer service and other things, it's really a catch-all and everybody says it. So you have to think about what's your number one strength that other people would say about you, your team, your past customers, all of that. And also the unexpected strength for people, the why you versus why somebody else. And I think that goes into, the whole like anti-customer service piece. Customer service these days means something different to everyone. And so you really have to, for me as an elder millennial, my customer service 5-star rating for a real estate transaction would be something that's totally digital, that is completely on my time frame, my as much flexibility as possible. That would be 5 stars for me for customer service. But there are a lot of agents that don't want to do that yet, haven't fully gone into that realm, aren't able to based on what's happening in their market and everything. Or the rest of their customers would give that a 1-star experience. So how do you balance that? And if you say that you give the best customer service and yet you can't provide what I portray as the best, that's not what you should lean on. You should lean on your number one strength.
I love that. I love like the specificity of like really understanding what it is that you want to do and what it is that you want to be known for. Like Vic has heard me say this before. Anyone that kind of follows our stuff has heard me say this before. I really believe that you become a better salesperson by becoming a better copywriter. I think copywriting and sales goes hand in hand. The better you are at actually writing email, the better that you are at telling your story, like articulating your story. It's so important. I talked about this at the event. We walked through the 5 phases of the customer journey. Eugene Schwartz talks about in his book Breakthrough Advertising. I kind of wrapping up here because I know that we have a hard stop. But Wayne, like, what are some of your thoughts, or what are some of the books that you recommend to agents to read to become a better copywriter or to become better with language patterns so that they can actually fully understand how to actually take that first step towards good storytelling? Because what you say, like thinking about on a deeper level, like how do I create a unique selling proposition? Really, at the end of the day, it's like they have a hard time understanding it, and it's something you have to I feel anyways that you have to dive into. So what are like some of the resources, some of the books, some of the frameworks that people that are listening to this podcast now can go and kind of start their process to becoming a better copywriter, becoming a better storyteller?
There are 2 that I would recommend, I think, right away for folks, 2 books that I really love. And they're not, and what I love about them is that they're not super prescriptive. It's not going to give you like this is exactly what you should do, because I don't think that works for most folks. But, and there's lots more that I'm happy to share offline with people. But one that I think is really helpful to a lot of agents it's called Get Scrappy by Nick Westergaard. And it's really fantastic because it helps people to break down, a lot of people jump in and they think, if I don't know how to do the renegade, I can't be on TikTok. Or if I don't have 10,000 followers on Instagram, then what's the point of even starting, or something like that. And Get Scrappy is all about how you don't have to be these giant brands and you don't have to be these giant personalities to be able to find success in your marketing, and how you can take small things from what other giant marketers do, or giant budgets, or large brokerages, or however you want to look at it, and do it in a way that makes sense for you and get a little scrappy with it. And that's kind of what you need to do as an agent these days. You've got to make the noise. The average attention span for an adult in the United States right now is 6 seconds, which is shorter than a goldfish. And like, if you've got to get somebody's
what did you say, Wayne? I was sorry, I got distracted with goldfish.
Exactly. The attention spans are shorter than ever, and we've got more messages coming up at us, and so it's very hard. And so the more that you can get scrappy, I think that's super helpful. And it's got some really great examples in there of how that will help you. The other one that I really love right now, that my team knows that I'm obsessed with, is The Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger. It is he's the CEO of Disney, and I'm not a Disney person necessarily, but I can appreciate, his whole thing of that book is that if he wanted Disney to be the chief storyteller for the rest of time, then they needed to make sure that all of the best stories being told were under the Disney umbrella, which is why they started buying groups like Pixar and Marvel and all of that. And so you have to be thinking, as a small business owner, a real estate agent, whatever it is, if you don't feel like you're the best storyteller, you've got to get those. If that's still your goal or something that is important, you need storytellers on your team. So if it's not you, you have to figure out how to add that talent. And some people, will rack their brain and continually run into dead ends trying to make it themselves. And not everybody can figure it out. Not everybody can end up being the best storyteller. I'm not great at math. I know it was the first outsourcing that I did when I started the company was I hired an accountant that I still love and adore to this day. But there are some that are going to need to outsource the storytelling, and think about who on your team can you add that can help you to make that happen. I think that that's what I would recommend the most between those two that can really help you get out of, because they've got great, I love those two books because it's not just like, here's our story or here's a couple of anecdotes. There are some really good, very specific things that they go through that I think you can bring into your own business, your own brokerage, your own real estate shop to see what's going to work for you.
Wayne, I want to say thank you today for sharing so openly and giving us kind of like a different way to think about storytelling and branding and really like marketing a real estate business. I want to say thank you. If somebody were to want to reach out to you, say for example, they want to have a conversation with you, learn a little bit more about what you do, where's the best place that we can send them to have a convo with you?
You can go to our website at bowdigital, BOWE-digital.com, and all of our social channels are on there, and you can connect with me there as well as my email address. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast. If you got any value today, all we ask is that you go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and other thing we'd ask is directing traffic directly to iTunes. That's where the majority of our listeners are. So go leave us a review. It helps us reach more real estate agents, helps us reach more real estate teams with information so that you can take local market share. I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon.